I'm the Deputy Chief of EMS for Jefferson County Fire EMS. I've been a paramedic for close to 40 years. I'm a reserve deputy, or now special deputy with Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. I've been affiliated with that office since 2002. I'm a medical legal death investigator. I've been doing that since the last part of 24. And I'm the mayor of Madras. I entered the Marine Corps in 1984, and somewhere during that time when I went in the reserves, I transferred from the Marine Reserve to the Naval Reserve, became a corpsman for a Marine Infantry unit. I think in a positive way. I grew up very poor, single parent. Marine Corps kind of gave me, it was a boost to my self-esteem, taught me a lot of things that I deploy in my professional life still to this day. Being a Marine, I felt like I was out there to conquer the world. Being a corpsman, I was there to take care of my Marines. And I felt I cared more about my Marines than I did about anybody else. As a paramedic, I kind of done the same thing, only kind of in reverse, out trying to save the world, and then becoming a deputy, kind of the same thing, but I find that I care more about my brothers at the Sheriff's Office than I do about anybody else. I moved to Oregon in 1989. By that time, I'd already been an EMT for 3 years. And I moved here from Las Vegas. I used to think nothing would ever faze me because I grew up in Las Vegas. I thought I saw it all. No, I didn't. When I moved here, my very first ambulance call was a horrible call. Chief goes, well, let's go. And they already had an idea what we're going into, and I didn't. So I walked into this apartment building, was not at all prepared for what I saw. And we got back at the station, it was close to 3 o'clock in the morning. We got back to the station, and I looked at the chief and like, that sucked. And he looked at me and goes, yeah, it was pretty bad. See you tomorrow. He left, and I'm like, okay. I remember thinking, wow, that really sucked. And then I'd tell a couple people, and they're like, wow, you sure you want to do this? And at that time, I was getting into the paramedic program at CFCC, and I was like, whoa. So then became afraid to tell anybody about it because they were saying, wow, you sure you want to do this? And I thought this was something I really wanted to do, but I'm like, this is going to be really horrible. And I felt bad because I didn't want to think I wasn't strong enough to do this job. So I went back and I told the chief, and I said, man, I think this kind of might be bugging me. He goes, well, we'll set you up and send me to see a counselor. I saw the counselor maybe 3 times. I remember whatever we talked about really had nothing to do with what was going on. And it's interesting nowadays when you talk about behavioral health and first responders who go see people who take care with behavioral health, there's actually counselors out there who specialize in what first responders deal with. They're not all counselors, not all psychiatrists, psychologists, they're not all created the same. There are those out there that specialize. That didn't exist back then. In fact, doing what I did wasn't a normal thing. That was probably the only time I've ever seen anybody for a call that I've been on. We tend to have a very dark sense of humor. It's similar to that in the military. Some things that you'd be horrified if you heard it out in public, especially around HR. And you realize, I remember the first time she's my ex-wife, but I remember when we were married, I went home and said, wow, we did this and this and this and this and this, and boy, and then this turned out to happen like this. And she goes, well, that was stupid. I bet you don't do that again. And I thought, well, I'm not going to talk to her anymore. So then you realize that when you talk to family members who aren't in the business, either it's horrible, they don't want to hear about it, or that you say something that's not really directly related. So you realize that, okay, you can't go home and vent. So it just kind of builds up, or you find other ways to deal with it, or you talk to your friends who kind of do the same thing. But that's when you realize that there's only certain people you can talk about this kind of thing to. I think although that's similar, there's some very distinct differences between military and first responders. But what's interesting, there's an awful lot of military that go into to become first responders, and so that bleeds over. Some things you laugh it off because you can't make it any better, but some things you just find other means to deal with it. I would say right now, especially for law enforcement, I'm in that unique position. I see things they both have very difficult jobs to do, and law enforcement gets absolutely no breaks whatsoever. They're held to a much higher standard. I know Bend Fire Department has a psychologist on scene, and they share it with one of the other agencies. That person, when they got in, it took that person about 5 years to develop a relationship of trust with the staff there. Like I said, you just don't open up and talk to anybody. And so that person, it took him time to get there. The sad thing was that person's under a contract, and that contract ends in 5 years, so they have to renew that contract. I mean, I understand that, but what if they decide to go with somebody else? Then that new person has to spend the next 5 years developing that whole new relationship or trust. We have a chaplain comes here every Thursday. There's the chaplain method, and then there's the psychologist method, and then they're finding that there really is value in involving both. I think what's great about our chaplain is the crews love her. I think it took her less time to get that relationship of trust than it did from the guy in Bend Fire, but I don't mind blood and guts, and that doesn't faze me. It's always situational things that really bother me. I never thought I ever had any issues. I've been in this job almost 40 years. I've done this, whatever. I think I had a pretty healthy life. But then I realized I don't dream. I know sometimes I have nightmares, and then I don't remember what the nightmare was. So I think life's pretty good. But I go to bed each night watching some kind of a comedy sitcom. So the last thing I hear when I go to bed is something more funny. Now to where we're at now, where now there's actually an active, there's a lot more active effort to focus more on mental health. And I think now is because now there's been identified people who have taken their life because of the business.